All right, let's get right into it. What is the cap rate you should be looking for in 2026? I mean, if you're an investor, this question is everything right now. Well, we're about to give you a straight-up, data-driven answer.
And just so you know, all this great info is brought to you by the folks at Real Estate Rank IQ. They're the ones who crunch the numbers we're going to be looking at.
Okay, so your 2026 cap rate target. We're not going to waste any time here. No long intros, no fluff. Let's start with the exact number you came for, and then we'll unpack how.
And boom, there it is. The rule of thumb for 2026, if you're looking at a solid, stabilized multifamily deal in a secondary market, you should be targeting somewhere in the ballpark of 5 to 6.5%. Now, you're probably asking, how'd you get that number, and does that apply to everything? Great questions. Let's get into the math.
First things first, let's talk about the core math. Because to really get why that target range makes sense, we all need to be speaking the same language. Don't worry, this is way simpler than it sounds.
Okay, it all starts with one thing: net operating income, or NOI. Just think of it as the pure profit your property kicks off before you pay your mortgage or taxes. It's simply all the rent you collect minus all the necessary expenses to run the place. You know, insurance, repairs, property taxes, the whole deal.
And that NOI, well, that's the magic number you need to figure out the cap rate. The cap rate is basically the property's raw, unleveraged return. It's the ultimate yardstick, right? It lets you compare an apartment building in Austin to one in Omaha, apples to apples, no matter how the deals are financed.
So how do you calculate it? It's literally a two-step move. You find your net operating income, that profit number we just talked about, then you divide it by what you paid for the property. That's it. The percentage you get, that's your cap rate. Simple. All right, if the math is so easy, why is everyone always arguing about cap rates? Why do they change?
Well, one word: the market. There are these huge forces pushing and pulling on rates constantly. Let's look at what's happening right now.
You can see this tug of war playing out right here. Things like higher interest rates and general economic jitters, they push cap rates up. Makes sense, right? If borrowing money is expensive and things feel risky, you're going to demand a higher return. But then you have strong rent growth, which pushes rates down. Why? Because investors are willing to pay more today, accepting a lower initial return if they think rents are going to pop tomorrow.
And this isn't just theory, this is exactly what we've seen play out. Remember post-2021? Interest rates went crazy, and boom, cap rates shot right up with them. Lately, it feels like things are kind of leveling off, but there's always a but, isn't there? The new wild card is soaring operating costs. I'm talking insurance, labor, you name it. That puts a squeeze on your NOI, which means investors have to demand a higher cap rate just to make the numbers pencil out. So with all that in mind, let's get back to the actual targets. Because let's be real, what you'd look for in a brand new, shiny Class A building is totally different from what you'd need for an older property that's a bit of a project.
Here's the most important thing to remember. Risk drives the return. For a super safe core Class A property in a top market, you're looking at a pretty low cap rate, maybe 4 to 5.5%. That Class B deal we started with, that fits right into our 5 to 6.5% sweet spot. But the second you step into a value-add deal, something that needs work, you're taking on more risk, so you have to get paid for it. That's why those cap rates start at 6.5 and just go up from there.
Okay, enough with the theory. Let's make this concrete. We're going to run through a quick example with a hypothetical Class B multifamily property. This is the exact kind of deal we're talking about with that benchmark number.
So imagine you've done the work, you've stabilized the property, and now it's humming along, generating a nice, clean net operating income of $500,000 a year.
You do your homework, you look at our chart, you check out some recent sales in the area, and you decide that the fair market cap rate for an asset like this is 6%, right on the money.
Okay, now we just plug it into that simple formula we talked about. You take your $500,000 NOI, you divide it by that 6% cap rate, and you get an implied value of roughly $8.3 million. See? This is how you use market data to figure out what a property is actually worth. But listen, just knowing the target cap rate isn't the whole game. Not even close. The biggest, most expensive mistakes happen when you ignore the details. You have to underwrite for these critical risks. If you don't, the pretty numbers on your spreadsheet will not be your reality. So here are 5 rules you've got to live by. First, local comps always beat national theory. Be super conservative, brutally honest with yourself about your rent growth and expense numbers. But the big one, the one that gets so many investors into trouble, is that last one. You have got to stress test your exit cap.
Why? Because this is the trap it's so easy to fall into. You might buy a great deal at a 5.5 cap today feeling great, but what if the market changes and when you go to sell in 5 years, the going rate is a 6.5 cap? Your property value just took a major hit. That single percentage point difference can literally erase years of your hard-earned gains.
So there you have it. That's your framework for thinking about cap rates in 2026. Look, the market is always moving, it's always changing. If you want to stay ahead of the curve with more breakdowns just like this one, you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe.